So I'm down here by the future Belly's Casino, and you can see the view, and you got two buildings that you can see distinctly. This one's the K2, and the other is the BCG, which I don't know. And then you have the Sears Tower, and I don't know what this building is right here with the red. But again, I'm waiting for this project to really see if it delivers on all the elegance that it says it's going to be. And I didn't know that Bally's also had a casino in the Quad Cities as well, which I've been up to the Quad Cities. The reason it's Quad Cities, it's actually 4 cities, but I think 2 on the Illinois side and 2 on the Iowa side. I think it's Iowa, Illinois, the Quad Cities. But there are 4 cities, and it's separated by the river. And I haven't been up there in a long time. But the Quad Cities, you have 4 individual municipalities, but they're between 2 states. So it's not one state. And then you have Trump Tower, which you can see in the background, the single antenna. And so the antennas actually are different in the Sears Tower than they're on the John Hancock. I think the antenna on the John Hancock is fatter than the antennas on the Sears Tower. The John Hancock is a newer building. The Sears Tower is an older building. Sears Tower, yes, in 1974. And then the John Hancock was built after the Sears Tower. So, architectural history of Chicago. And I love going on those tours. And the last one I went on was at Platinum Wealth Solutions on shoreline tours. And we went down the river, and it was a great time. And we hung out at Navy Pier. The whole experience was really good. And then things started going bad at work afterwards. But that was the last good experience. But anyways, I'm down here heading toward the Fulton Market District. And there's a back there at Milwaukee and Grand and that. Milwaukee, Grand, and Halstead. It has 6 corners. That, you know, when the new casino comes in, people are going to go down to these bars, and then there's a restaurant, and there's Richard's, and that's a bar, and then there's some restaurants, and I forget. But anyways, this area is going to be that much more popular. So and one thing you don't understand with waste management, what happens when you have activity? Activity generates waste. So as people experience life, going to concerts and all that, the setup, the breakdown, all that stuff creates more recycled material that needs to be recycled. And so waste management, you would think of all these companies that are in waste management wants people to live full lives. Because if they're out and about, they're going to concerts, they're going to football games, and that creates a lot of activity, and it creates a lot of waste. Going to movies, the popcorn, and that creates much more than you would in your home. So in home, you're more sedentary, and you don't eat as much. But if you're out and about, you start burning calories, and that triggers appetite. So people that are more active eat more. That means more waste, and that's better for waste management. So people being more active and living more full lives in turn creates more waste, and all the companies and the world goes around and around better. So sticking in front of your TV for long periods of time, and I don't mean to be, I like TV. I grew up with TV. My dad wasn't to get us our first color TV. We didn't get one till much later. I watched black and white TV growing up. Yeah, my TV was black and white. And later, eventually, we got a color TV, but that was after my dad died. That's when color TVs became cheap, or cheaper. But again, active creates all this need for energy. Just like dogs that are more active tend to eat more. Dogs that are less active tend to eat less. So one way to create consumption is through activity. And if people aren't going to the gym and they aren't going out and they're not living life, then activity is going to be stifled. Going out after they come home, you used to order a pizza or you order something to get delivery late night. Truly. And the only place you could go before, I would order from Magpies in Tucson. And Magpies was owned by a bunch of rugby players. But I would order late night from Magpies Pizza because they were open to 2, 3, 4 in the morning. I think 4 in the morning in Tucson. Actually, I think 4 in the morning. And so the bars closed 1. We get home about 2 or so, and I would order from Magpies Pizza. And so there were Domino's, there weren't as many in there. So we didn't order. I ordered from Magpies when I ordered pizza. But again, now there's Domino's that really weren't there. There wasn't many Domino's in Tucson. So the student union eventually got one, but there still weren't that many Domino's stores around Tucson. So anyways, you have activity, and that activity generates necessity for energy, and energy generates waste product. And so there's going to be wrappers, like I got a cheeseburger from McDonald's. There's a wrapper, there's a bag, there's some napkins, and that generates waste. And so, again, if people get more active and they're moving around more, then things are greater, right? There's more business being done. There's more need for business being done. So again, if people are good, right? And I'm trying to implement systems where people are good, where you have employers and educational institutions being the check. It's not the government, it's the employer. Now, the government is an employer as well, but Boeing implementing that with their employees. So do others. And you implement in the hospitality business and everything else mandated through the Department of Labor, then you end up cleaning up things and making the world, or at least the United States, a better place, and then they can do similar things in other countries. And then you got educational institutions working together with employers, making the world a much better place. And so you get this ability to have people going to the Beyonce concert and many other things. And this is why the Bible says if you don't work, you don't eat. Because one of the things that breaks down is that when you don't work, you can skate things. Being lazy, what do terrorists and all that do? Those terrorists that came to the United States, they didn't have jobs. They had fake student visas. They didn't go to school. And they weren't working. So they wouldn't have had that time to do terrorist activities, and they would have been discovered through the annual review by the employers doing both physical and mental evaluations. They would have been discovered. So one way to rid the United States of sleeper cells is mandating that everybody works. No government welfare. You gotta work. You don't work, you don't eat. So again, that makes everything better. And we're in a labor shortage anyways. And so it keeps a pulse on everything through the educational institutions and the workplaces mandating. And it doesn't matter if you're with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra or you're working on a film for Netflix, it's still an employer, and they have to have you do the physical evaluation and the mental evaluation. So, again, and if a flag comes up, then you have to address the issue. And you don't have a fallback where you can't deny doing this. So, just like I had to comply many times. So, I don't get it. I truly don't get it. Like when I went on unemployment, I have the people from unemployment, if I knew them, there is a female receptionist that I saw many times, but I went in there for many training, and the Asian girl who I really liked, and I used to have her email, we emailed a few times, I think she might have ended up on my Facebook too, but she worked at the unemployment office I went to, and I was taking these temporary jobs, and I was back and forth, but I did all kinds of training on Excel, training on Access Database, resume training, all kinds of job training at unemployment. So I was constantly in there educating myself. I wasn't sitting like this piece of shit bum on the sidewalk doing nothing. I spit on their grave. I curse them. May God burn them forever. Lazy pieces of filth. And the government allows it. And the employers allow it. And the police allow it. And all that charity work I did, I went into programs that said people were here to get jobs. All those programs that I was in, PADS and Urban Ministry and many of the other shelters, they said they are all here to rehabilitate them and to get them into employment. Goodwill, you name it. There was a pathway to a career. Everybody works. No one can't work. So, full employment. It doesn't matter what you do. There's adaptive everything now. Stephen Hawking proved it. He's a quadriplegic. He worked his whole life. He worked his whole life as a quadriplegic. So, no matter what your situation, you better be fucking working. And you say, nah, there's many. You don't allow me to do things, and you don't open up the adaptiveness, but there's many things that I can do. So don't give me that bullshit. So get rid of these deadbeats. Truly. Like in Bosch, everybody works is my slogan. No one can't work. And that puts them into the system, and that means everybody's accounted for. And if they don't show up for work, then you go looking for them, right? If they don't show up for school, then you go looking for them, right? So this is another way of having accountability, because an employer, if you're not there, the employer can call for a safety check. Jim didn't show up for work, no call, no show. and you report it to the police immediately, and they do a safety or well-being check. Truly. These systems are ways to keep tabs so people don't go missing, people don't go unaccounted for. So again, they work in very positive ways. And so if somebody does a no show, no call, you call the police immediately for a well-being check. It's better to be safe than sorry. So again, they should be doing these things, and then everybody's accounted for. The youth is working. Everybody has responsibility. And it doesn't matter in what capacity, volunteering, you should oversee. The Department of Labor needs to oversee charitable organizations with their volunteers, making sure they're giving the right protective gear and everything else. If they're cleaning up trash or anything like that, making sure the charity is giving the right protective gear. Maybe they need gloves. Maybe they need a face mask. Maybe they need that little thing that they use on the side of the road to pick up trash so they don't have to grab it with their hands. But they need to oversee volunteering. That's labor. That's working. So whether you're working in a formal capacity or volunteering, and they need to log those numbers with the Department of Labor, that's labor. They don't log those volunteer hours. They need to start logging those volunteer hours. And I believe that Social Security and other programs should give you bonuses, that you get rewarded for community service with an enhanced bump. If you do so many hours of community service, you get 5% more Social Security or something like that. Truly. So you get an enhanced payout. So encouraging people to volunteer. But all that volunteer needs to be reported. Every charity must report all volunteer activities and the people that volunteered for the charities. So they must report all volunteer, what they did, how long they were there, and so on. It's called accountability. But also people get recognition for their volunteer efforts. I would have been receiving all kinds of recognition from childhood on up if they reported all my volunteering efforts. So it would be nice if I had that alongside and I could have given that as a resume, but no one recorded all my volunteering efforts. And then I was questioned at work. Like one girl at work didn't believe I ran the Chicago Marathon. And so I brought in not only the picture, but also my medallion that I got from the Chicago Marathon. And she was Mung, I forget her name, but we were friends, but she questioned, and I proved it. I showed the picture, I brought in proof. I actually did the marathon. But I had people question me about, like, going to Africa. I had to bring in proof. I had to show them that I actually did these things. It would have been nice if there was a system that just recorded them, that all the charitable organizations reported in all the volunteers and what you did and how many hours you spent, truly, into a database. And then you can give that to your employer. Now, there's no accountability and people lie about their charitable endeavors. So why do people question me? Because other people lie about their shit. About donating blood. I've donated blood for 5 decades. And the Red Cross should have mine, and LifeSource should have mine, and many others. So this is charitable activity. But they don't give me, they have like, oh, you're current registered. How about registered all the way back to high school? How about when I donated at the church in high school? Truly, all these different times. And I don't have any record of those, formal record. I want a formal record. And I want to know if somebody is a deadbeat. Like, you've been on this planet 20 years, and I see no community service. You're not hired. Truly. You didn't volunteer for Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, meaning, truly, they need troop leaders, they need other things. Once you move up in age, you can go back and volunteer. So Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, all that, and I want that stuff recorded. And I want to know who I'm dealing with. So employers need to demand this, and charities need to record everybody who volunteers and what they did. So I want to know if you've been a deadbeat for 20, 30, 40 years. Doesn't the government? The government doesn't get any of that data. The court doesn't get any of that data. Truly, they don't get any. I want AA to be recorded. I want Narcotics Anonymous recorded. So you swipe in, who was at the meeting? What was the topic of the meeting? Truly. And it shows you checked in and when you checked out. And how many meetings you went to per week. So that all needs to be recorded. But I don't have a record from going in Tucson or going in Scottsdale or going here. But all the stuff I've done, there's no formal record. I wish there was. And that way, you know who you're dealing with. And I look around and all these people get to lie about their shit, and I don't want anyone to be able to fucking lie. I don't want the wolf in sheep's clothing. I don't want them to be able to lie about who they are and what they did. We set a bad example for the whole world. You teach the whole world that if you just lie, you'll get ahead. How is that setting a righteous example? Instead of using a story and saying, okay, there's somebody like I know that got stung with a bee, or I know that got bitten, or I researched this and it says these people have these many bites, and they tell the truth. Instead of saying, my husband, we got the mosquito net and he was in the tent and he got bitten. You're a piece of garbage in my book. If that was a lie. So, again, the truth. And I want these accountability so employers know who they're hiring. And if people know that employers get this and people get this and it shows who you are, like dating somebody. Show me what type of person you are. Jennifer she did a bunch of charitable activity with me. But again, she didn't post it on her resume or anywhere. It wasn't on her LinkedIn, except for Misericordia. But she did. She went to a soup kitchen with me. I worked in the kitchen. I organized and cleaned everything. She worked as a waitress on the floor, taking out food to people. And we worked in the soup kitchen. And we did other charitable activities together. But there's no recording. Like when I volunteered at Children's Hospital, the first time, the second time, there was no punch in, punch out. And there's no record of my volunteering effort. So these people go around and you think they're good because they make up shit, and now they can't make up shit. Either you showed up and performed, and I want them to give you a rating. I want the charities to give you a grade, A, B, C, D, truly, on your effort. Just because you're there doesn't still mean you're a good person. There's a lot of people that are there and they do nothing. And I found that out as well. And the other people bust their butt. It's like when I went on mission to Africa. All the black people, they ended up praising me. Now, I didn't do it because of that. But all of them, the women and all the men, praised me. They couldn't believe how hard a worker I was. And these are people in Ghana, they're like, were just kept on saying, I can't believe how many buckets and how hard you're working, and it's incredible. And they all liked me. They were really good to me, but they liked me because I was busting my hump to help make their life better. I was busting my hump to help make their life better. And then days into it, they started praising me. And I didn't expect it. I didn't want it. I didn't do that for the praise, but it naturally came from them. Tom didn't praise me. My brother-in-law didn't praise me, but they praised me. And they were really appreciative of how much I cared and how much effort I put in. Isn't that what you want from an employee? To know how much they care, how much effort they put into their job? Truly. Are they really trying? Are they trying to make the corporation better? Are they really putting in an effort? Or you got somebody who's just punching the clock and milking their time? Truly, they're figuring out how to do the minimal and suck it out of the system. Instead of an employee who's trying to inspire, trying to do things, trying to, how many employees do you want that want to do that? I want as many as I can get. How many do I want sucking the marrow out of everything? I don't want any of them. So the whole point is, I don't have any record of that. And they could have made comments on me from Atibabu and from Accra, and it would have been nice. They don't do that on their visa. Like, what they thought of you, what they rated. Like our visa, when somebody comes here, maybe they got in fights and everything else. And it should go on their report. And if they were a good tourist, it should go on their report. So it would have been nice that I got this by the government of Ghana, that Michael contributed substantially in his voluntary effort when he did this missionary service to help build the church in Ghana, Africa, and the Atibabu, and the community votes that Michael did outstanding work. It would have been nice. Truly, it would have been nice. And so separating these individuals out, and the proof's in the pudding, because over the long term, you're not going to be a faker, because the gravity of the situation of who you are will eventually show. In the short run, you can hide. In the long run, you can't. So it'll all pan out. But it would be nice if they kept these records and they graded people just like Uber does. You get to grade the driver gets to grade you. So you volunteer for a charity, you get to grade the charity gets to grade you. And then it goes on your record. And so you get to make comments. If you get 1 star or 2 stars or no stars, you can make a rebuttal. And under that, I think they were wrong, and this is the reason, and so on and so forth. And I had the flu that day, and so on, and I had this going on, and I wasn't really focused, and so on. But just on your credit report, do you know on your credit report, for any adverse action on your credit report, you can make a statement right under it, and it goes to your creditors when they pull it. The statement does. So any negative statement on your credit report, you're allowed to put a commentary below it. But people don't, but you can. So again, we need to establish these things, and the charities need to do this, and it needs to go into your permanent record. It needs to be something that travels with you to the day you die. So when I'm up there on the podium and saying that I'm here speaking on behalf of my brother-in-law and so on and so forth, and we're talking at, his funeral and so on, and what to say? Like I'm down here by Michael Ruiz, the empty lot. What's it going to become? I don't know. But the whole point is, then you have this, and you can say in history, and they can put it, here's the years of service, and the eulogy, here's the years of service, and so on. Truly. And you really get to know, and you're like, oh, wow, okay, this guy did this. So it holds people accountable. And yeah, you don't have to go out there and go crazy or anything else. And I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that you're doing some community effort here and there, and it shows that you have this consistently goodwill towards the country, towards your community, towards people. So, again, we have to show this, and I want them, and this is, it would blow people's mind, all the stuff that I've done. And if there was this formal record, it would be incredible. I would have loved it. It would have made life easy. And anyone questioned me, I'd be like, here you go. Here's a copy of my record. Let me see your record. Since you're requesting mine, I want to see yours, right? An eye for an eye. So you request something of me, I request something of you. So, and people think, well, I can lie to you and you could just tell the truth. I expect the truth back. You lie to me, I hope you burn. So, I give the truth, I want the truth, I expect the truth. Nothing but the truth, so help me God. So I'm by Wintrust and going into Chinatown. And this is a beautiful community right outside of Chinatown. And you can stay in these hotels. Here's the Hampton Inn Suites. It's a suite. They found the niche. All their Hampton Inns are suites. That's how they made themselves different. So any Hampton Inn, every room's a suite. And then you got this in-between segment, which I don't know what this really is, in between here in Chinatown. Like you got the nice segment with the Marriott hotels, McCormick, and then you got this, I don't know what, but I've been eating at White Castle since I've been a kid. I walked all the way from my house on Irving Park and Drake, all the way up to Addison, and I forget the cross street, to go to White Castle. It's been there since I've been a child. And I used to go up a quarter. I bought 5 sliders for a quarter. They were 5 cents a piece, the mini hamburgers. And for a quarter, I could get 5 of them. I would walk all the way up, buy White Castle, eat it, and then walk all the way back home. That's a long walk. No bus. Walked all the way there as a small child, 6, 7 years old. Walked all the way up, got my food, ate it, walked all the way back home. That's, I don't know, miles. I don't know how many, but it's quite a distance. And so, but I liked White Castle as a little kid. So we're heading up towards Chinatown. So I don't know what this area is and what the theme between, I know what it is around McCormick Place, but this gap between Chinatown and the McCormick Place area, what is this supposed to be? What is it trying to be? Truly, it is a gap that has no consistency. It seems to have no plan, no continuity. So what is this, like, nowhere's land? Because it's between two very well defined. Chinatown, very well defined. McCormick Place and the Marriott and the Hamptons and all that, very well defined. So, but this area in between, not very well defined. So, anyways, and here I am with the RTA, CTA going in, and it has its blue and red and white and its logo. And I'm for public transportation. I rode the L. When I go to New York, I walk and take the L. And most of the time when I went there with Jen and all my other friends, I walked and took the RTA. I took the train. So I never rented a car in New York, and actually never ended up taking a bus. I took the train and walked. Oh, I took some Ubers. I did take Ubers, and they started the shared Uber when I was in New York. And I took a shared Uber. So it was nice. They got dropped off at some other place, and I was going to a ramen place where I met this Asian girl who I ended up having a crush on. And then she said she was moving to Chicago, but she said she had a boyfriend. I don't know where she ended up, but it was a ramen place in New York. I went numerous times, multiple years. She was there for a couple, so I went back, and she was there for a couple years. And then the last time I was there, she said she was moving to Chicago. So I'm here back in Chinatown. So, and here's the Chinatown Mall, or the Chinatown Square, they call it. Not a mall, they call it a square. It's more of a rectangle than a square, but truly, it makes sense, Chinatown Square. It's a place where people come to meet and interact and obviously here dine and shop. So, Chinatown Square. So, it doesn't have to be in a square shape. It's the essence of a square, is a place where people come to shop and eat and interact. So it's nice. And it's right here. It's between these neighborhoods. And this side is the CTA. But again, there's another entrance right here, an exit on this side. And there's one on the other side. And this is Wentmore, where the Chicago White Sox go through, and then I'm going to take a left and go up Clark, and I'll show you where the stocks are going, and then I'm going to go home and end this video. But again, hopefully some of these things somebody is doing somewhere, and we can end up making the world a better place, right? That's the goal, right? Isn't that the goal of the United Nations? Isn't that the goal of every government, to make their citizens, make their country better? Everybody's going at it about a little bit different way, but ultimately, even bin Laden said he wanted to make things better. I didn't agree with the way he was going, but he said this was to make the world a better place. Now, the United Nations is supposed to have a platform, right? And what they consider moving forward in the correct manner, right? That this platform for its members that sets these minimum standards of what they consider as a member that you have to be doing. These are the ways that we engage and we resolve issues and that we move forward in a healthy manner. So they have to have this agreed upon. There's 195 members of the United Nations. I think it's 195 or 94. And it has to have this platform of setting these standards so its members know on a direction. And obviously through chamber, and they vote on it and so on and so forth, but they have to decide on what is a minimum human rights for every country. Now, you can differ, but there can be certain minimum standards, and countries have to be working towards these minimum standards. So they need to get this global platform. So anyways, this is where the Chicago White Sox are looking to go, right here. It's a huge chunk of land along the river, and could create a beautiful stadium. And they're even closer to Chinatown, so it's not bad. And their old land can be used for many other purposes. Truly, even expanding housing in that neighborhood. So, again, getting back to the United Nations, they have to have this platform on what they consider an acceptable action and what is considered unacceptable. So countries know there's certain mandates to be part of the United Nations. You have to maintain these minimum standards of what we consider human rights, what we consider civilization, what we consider decency, and so on. So they need to be setting this platform. So here, a big area. I mean, it's a beautiful area, and they opened the AMC over here at the collections, the Roosevelt collections. It's a nice place. I was even thinking about getting a place here at one time when things were starting to move more positive. It'll be right there. I'm right by a movie theater, and it seemed like a good place for me to live. And I'm right off the lakefront and so on, and it seemed like a good area to be in. So I was thinking of one time living at the Roosevelt collections. So anyways, here I'll show you the Roosevelt collection, but it's nice what they did with it. It was a good project, and you have H&M and Banana Republic and Ulta. And actually I shop all of these, and I need to shop at Lens Crafters. But I love Jean, so I went to the other place that she's at, America's Best. So, anyways, there's Fleet Feet, which I bought shoes at, and they're big with running, and they work with Chicago Area Runners Association. And you have a jewelry store and Pillars, which I have no idea what that is, but Pillars Solid Foundation, and Francesca's, it's a clothing store. I think of Mia Francesca's, there's the restaurant, and this is Francesca's, the clothing store. So, and Francesca is Italian, so I wonder if this is Italian clothing. Francesca is Italian. I would assume maybe Italian clothing. Here's H&M, and then right next door is Old Navy, and this is, you're going to get both H&M and Old Navy. Both are 30 and under demographics, so they work well next to each other. And then Ulta, beauty store, and so it's a nice little mall appointed. And 150 West, which I don't know. It's got the South Loop Farmers Market. Okay. And then they have this little Chicago Press Cafe. And then Nando and Peri Peri. I went there for chicken, and it's good. I like the place. And Pacino's. So this has been a few places, but this is the new AMC up here. They say it's now open. Movie theater. And so an anchor tenant all the way in the back. And it's good. It drives people all the way through the mall. The movie theater should be in the back. So they're forced to walk by all the retail, and then they go out by all the retail. So it's nice. They get to see it. And the thing is, the only thing the movie theater never did with this is encourage people to go shopping. That you can get discounts on the parking, or you can get free popcorn or free soda if you show receipts from merchants, if you purchase anything from any merchant within here. So go shopping before your movie. But again, people have to be able to store their bags, right? Not everybody drives here and parks. So where am I going to put my shopping bag if I go to the movie? And most of these places, if you're going to a late night movie, are closed. So you're in a shop and go to these places before the movie. So where can I put my bag? So the movie theater would have a place where you could put your bag. But they also have to have a scanner, making sure you're not going to put a bomb in the bag, right? So Banana Republic, I did a lot of shopping here. And so Massage Envy, I never been to. But here it's good. And then Pink, a girls store, Victoria's Secret, and Pink. So it's awesome. And beautiful girls. And I love women. And lens crafters. And a boxing place. Yep, Title Boxing Club. So anyways, several great places. But it's good in the movie theater. But the movie theater should be working with this. And they're by the X-Pot, the Wagyu house. So you can see it. And I've never had Wagyu. Arby's had it, but I didn't get to eat it, the burger. But this is the Wagyu house. I heard Wagyu is awesome. But again, and the socks is going to be over here. Wouldn't this be awesome for the Roosevelt collection? As you can see, the B&R for Banana Republic. And in the Roosevelt collection. And right over here will be the stadium. It will make for a great view for these people. Truly, the stadium and that whole development, what it looks like, will enhance the value of all these properties. White Palace and all this, even the train yard over there, their property will go up in value substantially. Oh yeah, if they build the stadium over here, all that property that the Metro owns over there is going to go up in value, substantially up in value. And then right down the street is Urban Ministries. Their property is going to go up. I mean, Pacific Gardens, I should say. Their property is going to go up in value substantially. So they get all these Whole Foods and all this area will get a substantial bump. And when they're leaving the other place, if they put something in there that's correct, it'll bring a substantial bump to that neighborhood too. So you don't want one area to go down and another area to go up. Then that's a wash, right? No winners, no losers. I mean, there's a winner and a loser, but it's a wash. You want both areas to maintain positivity. So the stocks exit, something has to come in that maintains value or increases value. So it creates a win-win between communities. So there's not one community losing and another community winning. Both communities are winning. So this whole area will get a substantial boost. And right here down the street is the expressway. So they're right off the expressway. The red line and train lines are all right behind. They're all on Roosevelt. And then you have UIC. All the students can go to the game. It's right by UIC. And then there's the Christian high school. They can, they had this student incentive to go to the Sox games. I forget what it was called. But again, so it's good for this whole area. They have tons of retail and bring people down here that go shopping. All these retail shops will benefit on Canal. So you have this mall right here. This will be enhanced. And then they can make this train yard, like with the fence and that, they can make it look good. they don't need to move. It'll get a substantial bump, but they can make it more visually friendly. Yeah. So they can just make it more visually friendly, more, adding a little bit of, elegance to its look. And then right down the street, there's the Jewel right there. And then you get Urban Ministries, Pacific Gardens. Urban Ministries and Pacific Gardens should work together. Maybe they should join together. Truly. Because they have things that Urban Ministry doesn't, and Urban Ministry has things that Pacific Garden doesn't. And they can work as a better organization together. So Urban Ministries has healthcare and some other things. They don't. They have the radio and the unshackled, and they can train people and so on. So again, they can bring these people out of their situation, and they can move into a full-blown church. Truly, with all kinds of daycare and adult care. Truly, they can do adult daycare, children daycare. Truly, it's a recreational center where adults can come late night and play backgammon or whatever. So it's like a community center. And so, again, they can reform how they do services and how they interact. They don't need homeless people anymore. And that should be over. But they can get into rehabilitation services and other things when people stumble. They can come here, like they can have Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. They can have, domestic violence, counseling and other things they can offer when people, marital counseling, dating counseling. And so they can get into other things, other avenues of people don't need, because they have a place to live, but they need financial literacy, they need many other things. And so they can get into all of that. There's Home Depot over here. A lot of those people in Urban Ministries and that could work for Home Depot. They could have a program from pads to houses. What was the pads statement? From pads to homes, I think it was, or pads to residents. I forget the exact thing for pads, another thing, but it was to move them from the pads into their own residence. So here is Best Buy and everything, and they would substantially benefit. LA Fitness and all this would, because people go down, the ticket offices and all kinds of things can be at the stadium, and Navy Pier and Coca-Cola. Enjoy life. I just had a Coca-Cola today, a Diet Coke. And I did, I think, lemon ginger Diet Coke. I like lime the best, but I like lemon. And then my friend Michael in that, he likes the orange and others, which I don't mind orange soda. I like orange soda, but it's not my top soda. So, and then this could be truly a white palace. So, again, this whole area, and then what's coming down here, and the new stadium would feed in this whole development that's going on at the post office. So the old post office is becoming things. You have, Marshall's, and you have University of Chicago Medicine. And so, and then you have Verizon Cellular. I have Comcast. But I like Verizon. I was a customer there. I was a customer at T-Mobile. They have different cost benefit, truly. But each of them has their own value proposition. So it depends on what you're looking for. But again, so the new post office coming in, so that would feed right into the stadium, or the stadium would feed right into the new post office. I don't know what it's becoming, But there's another development that opened up right here as well. So you have, you have this development right here, and I don't know what it's becoming, but this is the Canal Station. So is this a train station, or I don't know what it's truly becoming. What is the Canal Station? So, again, is it a parking garage? I have no idea. So, anyways, that means they're not doing any advertisement. I don't see any commercials on TV or anywhere about these projects. So, again, and you don't see many things on YouTube about anything. So here's the Chicago Post Office. Maybe mine gets some following. I have no idea. But here's the post office. And the new stadium would fit perfectly into this development. And then you're right on top of the financial district, which would be better for the Sox anyways. So they're right on top of the financial district. They're right down the street on Canal, basically. You go the Canal to Roosevelt, and then you go over the Clark, and you're at the stadium. It's a half a mile. And they're right on top of the financial district. They're right on top of the post office. So they would get lots of more attendance from this area. So they would get way better attendance. Most of these people don't go down to the Cubs game. They just go over the Sox Stadium. So it's not poaching from the Cubs. So the Cubs get their side more from the north side of the city. That's why they call them Northsiders, Southsiders. But I'm wondering what this is going to be. So this whole development here. But again, the new stadium would fit right into all of this. All this. And here's the Congress Expressway I'm going under. And on the other side of it is the new post office. Financial district. So it's straight down Canal. And so all this would be readily accessed. I guarantee you they would have outstanding attendance if they moved the stadium over there. They would fill it up all the time. They don't have that where they're at. But if they moved over here, it would be a no-brainer. They can have night games and people get off work in the financial district and pop right over to a late night game at Sox Park, go home, and then come back to work the next day. So their night games would be extremely beneficial. And then they can have early games on Friday, because the 3 p.m. start was the businessman start. The 3 p.m. They started the 3 p.m. games. Before they were just 1 p.m. and then they moved 7. Then they started the 3 p.m. They have the 1 p.m. starts and the 3 p.m. starts on Friday. The business special on Friday, 3 p.m. starts. And so a lot of people would pop over to the stadium. So they would get lots of attendance. And here's Wacker Drive. So, again, right on top of Wacker Drive. So it integrates into this whole downtown. And you have the river tours and all that, part of it. And so the river goes right into, they can drop them off at Sox Park. Truly, the water taxis, the different tours, even the shoreline tours and that, can drop people off and pick people up from the stadium. But you're right here. And here's Sears Tower. Or the Willis Tower. So, again, that right here on Wacker Drive, now you're in the financial district. And then they're connected to the Lyric Opera, and then the Chicago Symphony, and the Art Institute, and so on. And so it just creates a whole better atmosphere for the things you can do before the game and after the game. And so it creates an incredible experience that where they're at, you don't have. Truly. But if they move and they take that new spot, it creates all this experience, and all these people from the CME and all these places can pop over to the stadium. And then Deloitte and other ones, CME and all that, can buy skyboxes. Truly. And I guarantee you the Sox will have the greatest attendance ever if they move to that spot off of Clark. It fits perfectly in with everything else, with what's trying to be accomplished. And so I think they should move, and it'll allow for Illinois Institute of Technology to grow, or them to do other forms of development there that are more beneficial to the neighborhood. Truly, the stadium isn't as beneficial to the neighborhood. It would be way more beneficial up here, and they can figure out what they do when they exit. So Reinsdorf, Jerry was a developer, so he has a mind. When they're leaving, Mayor Brown, I should say, one